6 months after surviving a car accident, 33-year-old photographer Nolan Wright suffers from severe amnesia and nightmares of someone pulling him back and choking him. Because of his condition, he struggles to be a reliable single dad to his young daughter Ava, as he has lost his wife Rachel in the accident. Fortunately, Ava is highly intelligent and mature for her age. She helps him with basic tasks around the house by putting up instructions on Post-its for him and showing him photos of the people in his life, reminding him of his professional life. As they leave the house, Nolan hears another voicemail from the assistant of Dr. Lillian Brooks, a neurologist who works at the hospital he was first brought to after the accident, offering him a spot in their cognitive research study, which he ignores. He braids Ava's hair and notices the hole in the wall, which happened after he punched it when he got frustrated, breaking his hand. In the car, Nolan apologizes to Ava for raising his voice the other night, and Ava forgives him. Dropping Ava off at her school, Parker Hills Elementary, Nolan pulls out a pack of cigarettes, which Ava confiscates, telling him he doesn't smoke. Nolan returns to work, ready to show his boss, the Southern Texas Chronicle editor-in-chief Kathy, his new photos. But she informs him that the publisher won't sign him because his work isn't as good as his old ones. Upset, Nolan meets with his friend, Dr. Gary Yebo, who also works at the hospital he was first brought to after the accident. Gary encourages him to remain positive. When he tells Gary about his hand, a surprised Gary tells him that he has never seen him hit anything. Gary suggests accepting Lillian's offer as they haven't gotten any progress after seeing traditional doctors, and she is one of the leading researchers in her field. Nolan meets Lillian, who reviews his file and reads that he was found unresponsive at the scene and remained in a comatose state for 3 days before waking up with severe memory loss. To confirm that the pathway to his memories isn't totally corrupted, she subjects him to hypnosis. Under hypnosis, Nolan experiences getting pulled back again by an unknown person after hearing sounds, which he doesn't know where they are coming from. Awake, Lillian asks him what he saw, but the frightened Nolan demands to know what she did to him, telling her he saw the same thing he kept seeing in his nightmares. She informs him that the hypnosis is only meant to transport him to his deep subconscious, and unlike her other patients, he is the first one to see something immediately, which means his brain is active. Frightened, Nolan returns home. Meanwhile, Ava's teacher accompanies Ava while she waits for Nolan to pick her up at school. She later drives Ava home and warns Nolan that if he forgets to pick up Ava again for the 4th time, she'll notify child services. He apologizes to a weeping Ava, who then apologizes for making his life difficult. He assures her that she doesn't make his life difficult, but Ava leaves to make dinner, saying if she doesn't, no one else will. Determined to be a better father to Ava, Nolan returns to Lillian, who explains to him that the term life review means the phenomenon after a near-death experience, where life flashes before one's eyes. As she believes that it contains key memories that replay on a constant loop all the time, Nolan's therapy will be focused on putting him into those memories. Lillian shows him an equipment called the black box, which will extract his key memories from his brain waves and convert them into a dreamlike, immersive virtual experience after he undergoes hypnosis. She informs him that he will be subjected to re-experience as many memories as possible until he wakes up, and the more they do it, the faster the results. As they begin the session, Nolan first experiences being in his safe room, a place only he can enter and no one can harm him. As he walks through his virtual world, he cannot see nor hear anything from the real world except Lillian's voice, since she instructs him what to do. She instructs him to never leave through the dark wooden door, otherwise she won't be able to bring him back. Using an analog watch, Nolan switches from one memory to another. He first re-experiences his church wedding to Rachel, but his face is the only one that is not blurred. Meanwhile, Lillian, who he can no longer communicate with as he's beyond the safe room, records his results. When a man creepily crawls towards him, a frightened Nolan retreats to his safe room and wakes up in the real world. Nolan informs Lillian about the first memory he re-experienced, and Lillian suspects that his brain is resisting to not trigger his trauma. She urges him to stay longer next time, aiming to have at least one face to appear. Gary visits Nolan's home to check on him, and Nolan tells him about his first session with Lillian. Happy about his progress, Gary tells him about his loving and happy relationship with Rachel. When Ava gets sad after seeing Rachel's photo, Gary comforts her. Nolan later sees their wedding photo and notices that their wedding is a garden wedding. When he picks up a chopstick from the floor, he gets snippets of a memory in a Japanese restaurant. He brings Ava there, saying he brought her there when she was 3 years old, and it's his and Rachel's favorite spot. After teaching her how to use the chopsticks, Nolan thanks her for being patient with him. Nolan returns for his second session and happily tells Lillian about his father-daughter date. Before they begin, she tells him that seeing blurred faces is a condition called prosopagnosia, a sign of brain damage, and reminds him to stay longer so he can see a face. She then advises him to repeat, "I run my mind, it does not run me," when the creepy person appears. Nolan appears in a memory where he is in an apartment and infant Ava is crying in her crib. After making her stop and looking out the apartment window, he finds a crying Rachel in the kitchen and a broken plate on the floor. As the creepy person appears again and emerges from the crib, he repeats, "I run my mind, it does not run me." Unsuccessful, he returns to the real world and reports to Lillian what he saw and what happened. Nolan is confused about the apartment because as far as he knows, the house they're currently staying at is the only place they lived in. When Lillian reminds him that the black box pulls directly from his subconscious and suggests that maybe he went there for a shoot, Nolan maintains that he never went there. Nolan visits Gary to ask if he ever hit Rachel, but Gary assures him that he isn't a violent man and Rachel would have told him if he did. He reports what happened during the session and asks about the apartment, but Gary says he doesn't think they ever lived in an apartment. Gary then suggests that he may be hallucinating because of his head trauma and everything that's going on. After fetching Ava from school, Nolan locates the apartment based on the gate he saw when he peeked out of the apartment window. When he enters the building and sees the stairs, he remembers a man falling down the stairs. Exploring the building, he knocks on apartment A 203's blue door. A girl around Ava's age named Ashley answers the door, and he asks her if he can talk to her mom. Nolan is stunned to see the apartment's interior similar to the one he saw in his memories. When he sees Miranda, Ashley's mom, he quickly leaves. Nolan tells Gary Miranda's address, and Gary writes it down. He starts thinking maybe he cheated on Rachel, but Gary assures him that he is a good husband and father. After Nolan leaves for his next session, Gary reviews his file and head scans, noting that after Nolan is suspected for being brain dead, he was transferred to neuro for evaluation. Then he regained consciousness. On his third session, Nolan appears in his church wedding memory again, but everyone still has blurred faces. He tries to ignore the creepy person who is approaching again, but as Rachel's face starts to show clearer features, the creepy person hits him, prompting him to return to his safe room. Determined to know more, Nolan returns to the apartment memory. As Rachel's face starts to show clearer features, the creepy person appears again. When he gets close enough, Nolan kicks him. Confused with the information he got from Nolan's file, Gary approaches neuropsychiatry doctor, Dr. Reed, and asks him how Nolan suddenly woke up. Reed tells him that after he saw Nolan, Lillian got a second look on him. She brought him to her lab and he was conscious again when he came out. Because of this, Gary goes to see Lillian, but she's still in session with Nolan, so he tells the assistant to make her call him when they're done. Nolan appears in the memory where he's admitted in a hospital. Meanwhile, the monitor alarms Lillian, prompting her to ask which memory he's in. The woman who's supposed to be Rachel is then revealed to be Miranda. The bride in the church wedding and the wife in the apartment memory are both Miranda, not Rachel. Nolan's reflection shows Thomas Brooks, Lillian's son, revealing that his memories are Thomas's. Miranda is his wife and Ashley is their daughter. When Nolan says mom, Lillian tearfully celebrates. Lillian explains to Thomas that when he fell down the stairs, he was brought to the hospital, but it was too late. Before he died, she downloaded his data from the servers and waited for a suitable patient to upload his consciousness into. She saw the opportunity when Nolan came brain dead. After fetching Ava from school, Thomas as Nolan tearfully leaves Ava with Gary, telling Gary that things aren't safe with him. Gary informs Thomas about what he found out, suspicious of Lillian, but he gets confused about his reaction. Thomas, as Nolan returns to apartment A 203 and proves to Miranda that he is Thomas. However, after learning that Miranda has erased all traces of him and wants him out of their life, he shows his violent tendencies, prompting Miranda to knock him out to save Ashley. He then ends up in front of Ava and sees the creepy man in his reflection. Confused, Thomas leaves, scaring both Ava and Gary, and heads to Lillian's office to ask her how and why he ended up in front of Ava. Gary, who's getting increasingly alarmed by Nolan's actions, looks up Miranda's address and learns about Thomas. Meanwhile, Lillian subjects Thomas to a black box session to get rid of the creepy man and to stop the traumatic responses happening to him. Thomas appears in an apartment memory and learns that the creepy man is Nolan, trying to replace what is left of Nolan's consciousness with Thomas's. Thomas and Nolan fight. When Thomas is about to eliminate Nolan, Gary and Ava arrive, interrupting the session, and Ava's screams make him remember that Miranda threw him down the stairs as self-defense because he's an abusive husband. Because of this, Thomas gives up and lets go of his hold on Nolan. Nolan remembers his and Ava's handshake, proving that his memories have finally returned. Before they leave, Gary breaks the black box. Miranda reads about Lillian getting terminated after the scandal in the newspaper and continues packing with Ashley. Lillian repairs the black box and tries to run Thomas's consciousness. She then smiles as it seems to be working.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.